Ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of the world famous, the universal love, the best podcast in one, two, three galaxies. But ladies and gentlemen, you know how we just call the show Online Marketing Moves, and we're coming to you live to date. Today is July the 28th, 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very important show today to talk to you about. Today, we are going to talk about the importance of getting a yes, an actual yes. Not a, I think they said yes. I think maybe they might be interested, they might not be interested. I think they might be on board. They might like it, they might not like it. Ladies and gentlemen, you want yes or you want no. You do not want the lukewarm, as I discussed on the show before. God takes you hot, he takes you cold, he spits out the lukewarm. Why do I bring this up? Because sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, when we think we're selling and telling somebody on an idea, um, and they're nodding their head, that does not mean that they are on the same page as you. Okay, the reason why I bring this up, I remember one time I was on I met a young lady long before I met my wife. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's all get back into the time machine. Let's all go back to the year of 2000, okay? When the cash money was taking over for the 99 in the 2000, okay? So one time I met this girl at this club in in San Diego. Um, so I met this girl. We danced a little bit. I got her phone number. We went on a date. She did not say, and this is not an exaggeration, ladies and gentlemen. We went on a date. We went to Denny's. Listen, low budget back then, okay? Low budget. We went on a date. We went to Denny's. We walked we walked to like the beach. And I just remember I said, "Are you having a good time?" Because, ladies and gentlemen, I was doing a lot of talking, a lot of talking. And back then, I did not do as much. Well, I was, well, the talking was not, not as great as it is now. But what I'm telling you is it was a one-sided conversation. Have you ever been on this side of the one-sided conversation? Me myself, I like to go whenever I'm talking to somebody on the phone or talking to somebody in person. I like a nice banter, a nice back and forth. They talk, I talk, they talk, I talk. Um, but this time while we was at Denny's, I'm just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, and I'm spitballing, and I'm basically feeling like I'm on stage and I'm doing a comedy bit, because I try to be funny. I think I'm funny in my own mind, and so I'm just sitting over there, and she's and I'm like, this girl don't talk. She laughing, but she not talking. I don't know if this is a nervous laughter. I don't know if this is a I'm funny laughing. I don't know if this guy's a silly. This guy's not my guy. I don't know what's going on. And so I just remember we left. I said, "You had a good time?" I had to ask that like 3 times. She said, "Yeah." I'm like, "Man, I don't know what's going on, man. You sure?" And she's like, "Mm-hmm." And I'm like, it's yeah, no. So I'm selling, but I don't know if the person I'm selling to is buying, So I was very confused. And then finally I said, "Say, man, are you sure you had a good time? Because I'm so confused. You don't talk." She said, "I'm shy." I said, "I get that, but we've been out 2 hours now, and you've said about 5 words. You did a lot of laughing, which is great, but I don't know. I don't pick up on that. I need a verbal, I like you. I need a, I like you, not a key, because there have been plenty of times, where I've, talked to somebody and they gave me the number and they laughed a little bit. And then I call them on the phone. I get nothing. I get no answer. I get no call back. I get nothing. But sometimes they laugh and they giggle and they go, "No, it wasn't for me." That's great. But I like a yes or I like a no. And when it comes to selling, when it comes to, hey, do you enjoy the content? You want to hear yes or you want to hear no. You don't want to hear it's okay. It's all right. You don't want lukewarm. You want people hot for you or you want people cold for you. You don't want the in between. And then if you do get the in between, you want to turn the lukewarm into a yes, or you want to quickly turn them into a no. And so I'm telling you, this is when it comes to like the content, when it comes to the email list, when it comes to all of that stuff, when it comes to selling, telling, whatever, building a business, growing a business, you want yeses, you want nos. You do not want the in between. The in between is the worst. You don't want, you never want a person to say, I'm with this person, but I don't know. I don't know if they're for me. If they say that, they ain't for you, okay? When I met my wife, ladies and gents, my wife, she's beautiful, she's smart. I thought she was funny. You know what I'm saying? And I was after a few months, now I know. Listen, my wife would say, it took him long enough to marry me, but 9 years later, here we are, we're married. But, my wife, I knew she was the one for me, We had to iron some things out. We had to work on some things. We got there. We're married. We have two beautiful children, but I knew she was the one for me. It was a complete yes when it came to that. You don't. I've dated a person before, and I'm just like, it's like a transitional champion in wrestling. You're like, they got the belt, but they ain't gonna have the belt long. We all know that. You know what I'm saying? They're not gonna be here very long, and it's not a good thing. You know what I'm saying? The older you get, the more you just kind of like you could tell me up front. Yes or no, or as I get older, my feelings are not to hurt my feelings. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. So it's like, do you like the podcast? You don't like the podcast. You're an avid listener because you want the kind of fans who are going to be passionate for you. You want the kind of people who are going to step out and be like, "This is the greatest show. This is the great guy. I love this guy. You should listen to him." You want the kind of people who are going to fight for you. You don't want you don't want 100,000 people listening to the show and they go, I could take this fella or I could leave this fella. It don't matter to me. That's the KOD. That's the kiss of death. That's what you don't want. And so, with me, when I went on that date, and the girl, she didn't give me a full throated endorsement, but she didn't say no. She was kind of if I felt the lukewarmness. So and that day I said, you know what? I'm good on that. You know what I'm saying? I said, I don't need this. And so I had to move on. And so, you know, now as a person, as a content creator, marketer, I would say I would keep her around, and then I would just write a bunch of emails, and I'll be like, "Come on, honey, buy buy my product." And she's either gonna get off the email list or she's gonna stay on the email list and buy something. I remember one time I wrote, I got an email list. I write it on a daily basis. I wrote I wrote 3 emails one day. And just trying to get people to listen to the podcast. I got an email from somebody saying, "Can you please take me off your email list?" I go, "Why would I do that? You can hit the unsubscribe button. I ain't doing that." I just wrote back, no. Eventually they got off the email list. But you want to move people around. You want people on you, or you want people off of you. There's really no in between. Either they're gonna like you or they ain't. Okay, you don't want the lukewarm. You don't want your content to be lukewarm. This is why, um, at the end of the day, listen, try to play it cool, trying to play it safe is not the way to go. Sort of being middle of the road, it ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? It's not gonna work. If you're doing the political space and you kind of like, well, I agree with some Republican points, but I agree with some Democrat points. Then you're Stephen A. Smith. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work that way. Um, if you're religious and you read the Bible and the Bible has certain things in there like, sex before marriage is a sin. Um, you learn this stuff as you go along. As I get more into you know, uh, as I get more into the word and the Lord, I realize it's like, hey man. You know, yeah, sex before marriage is a sin. Of course, I've done it. It happens, you know. Um, but the Lord also forgives, you know what I mean? I mean, Jesus died on the cross for all our sins, so you have to look at it you have to look at it that way, you know what I'm saying? But when you know better, you do better. So if my wife something ever happened, with my wife or something like that, if I was ever to get in another relationship, I would say, "Hey, honey, we gotta wait till we get married," you know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding. I'm never getting married. I'm never getting married again. So what do I do? My wife is my wife. That's it. But what I'm what I'm telling you, if I had to go back now, let me just say this: if I had to go back now and do it all over again, um, would I be a virgin until I got married? I will say this. I will say this out loud. Sex does distract from getting to know somebody on a personal level. And a lot of times people, the lust, we take lust as love, and we forget that at the end of the day, you have to come up out of that bedroom. You have to get to know each other and you have to like each other in order to build a loving, healthy relationship. Because you have to think about it like this. Once you start having kids, it kind of exposes if you and your spouse, if you and your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever, whatever, it exposes how much you really like each other. Because in the beginning, when it's a baby and there's nothing to be done, but you and her are raising this baby, and there's nothing going on. Okay, you have to realize if you don't like this person, it's gonna really show. I really enjoy my wife's company, and we get along very well. And I laugh every now and then. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed. We're doing this. We're doing the shift, or hey man, I had the baby for 6 hours. Now it's your turn. And I'm like, well, I miss you. You talk to you later, And it's like, if we didn't get along so well, it would not work. And so what I'm telling you is getting to know somebody, there's nothing wrong with that. And so I say all that to say, if you are, gonna be if you're gonna be in the word, don't be lukewarm. If you're gonna do politics, don't do lukewarm politics. It's hot, it's cold, there's no in between. It's yes, it's no. You're gonna get people to like you. People are not gonna like you all the time anyway. Um, I used to do Lyft sometimes. I do Uber every now and then, Lyft, Um, I found it to be kind of cool, make a few bucks, whatever. But one funny thing is sometimes you can do 100 rides, you can have 99 5 stars. There'll be one person who's just like, 3 stars, 2 stars, whatever. I didn't like them. And for whatever reason, you might have told them, they might have said, "Can you turn your music down?" You go, "Yeah, sure." Or they could say, "Can you change it?" And then you go, "Nah, I ain't changing my music." And so they don't like you. And so it's it. So everybody's not gonna like you. Everybody's not gonna be your friend. But what I'm telling you is you want to get as many hot yeses as possible and as many flat out no's. You don't want the I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Those are the worst kind of people. Because those people are the biggest liars. Now, if somebody likes you, they really like you, they're not lying. If somebody don't like you and they just say, "I don't like you," they're not lying. The people who are in between, they're the bigger liars of the group. I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? When you're in the business of selling, when you're in the business of creating content, you can't be like, "Oh, I hope everybody likes me." Everybody ain't gonna like you. It's just the way it is. Some people gonna love you, some people ain't. But what you don't want is I could take it or I could leave it. That's the kiss of death. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's it, and that's all. We'll be back tomorrow with all new episode of Online Marketing Moves. But until then, my name is Tony Zano. Thanks for listening. If you like this, give us a good review. If you don't like it, who cares? But anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. God bless each and every one of you. And as always, everybody, peace.